So let's talk a little bit about subjects. We know that the subject of a sentence is the thing that's doing the action, at least in the most basic sense. We know that eventually that's going to get a little bit confusing, but for the most part, it's the thing that's doing the action. So, for instance, here we have Andres. He's a student. The student had a great idea. The action is had, and the person doing that action, having the great idea, is the student. So the student is the subject of our sentence. Now let's complicate the matters a little bit. When the teacher asked a question, the student had a great idea. Now it gets a little bit confusing because there's a couple things that are actually happening in this sentence. There's asking, and then there's also having a great idea. Here we have a dependent and an independent clause. The sentence altogether is what's known as a complex sentence. So we have to ask ourselves at this moment, what is this really about? What is our main sentence? If you look at the two parts, we have two different clauses. The first clause, when the teacher asked a question, isn't a sentence at all. That doesn't stand on its own. It's what's called a dependent clause. It's dependent on another part of the sentence to make sense. When the teacher asked a question isn't going to stand alone. The second part of the sentence, however, the student had a great idea, does stand on its own. That's an independent clause. I could have that as its own sentence. So if I ask for the subject of the sentence, that's actually the sentence we're talking about, is the independent clause, the part that could stand on its own. So of course, if that's our sentence, the action is had a great idea. So once again, who's having the great idea? The student. Of course there's another action happening, the teacher asking a question, but that's not part of our main sentence. Alright, so now let's try some of these on our own.